Are you tired? Do you feel like you don't love your partner anymore? Do you feel like your partner doesn't love you anymore? That's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about loss of love and affection. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Why are you experiencing it? And what are you going to do about it? Are you going to scream, yell, hoop, holler, cuss, fuss, and argue? Or are you going to take the necessary steps to get to the root of what's really going on so that you can put forth a concerted effort to try to save your relationship, to try to save your marriage? So when we look at some of the underlying reasons why couples end up cutting off the open expression of love, the open expression of affection, there's a bunch of different reasons, but it could be unresolved conflicts. You know, you're sort of letting stuff pile up. You may be conflict avoidant. You maybe are afraid of, what's going to come out if you have the elephant in the room conversations. So the things that need to be getting addressed, the conversations that need to be had in order to have a healthier, more fulfilling relationship, those things are being left unsaid. They're not being appropriately addressed, and therefore the conflicts that you're experiencing in your relationship are not getting resolved. Maybe one of the reasons is you have different life goals. You may be sitting behind a desk. You may be a white collar worker and your spouse is a blue collar worker. You may be married to your work and your work has you gone all the time, or your work is demanding so that even when you're home, you're not fully present. And therefore, the life goals that you have, albeit good for each of you as individuals, but it's taking its toll on the relationship because those conversations that need to be had in a healthy, positive, and productive way are not being had. Maybe you're feeling unappreciated or disconnected for a variety of reasons, but you have to be able to put your finger on the pulse of that. Maybe, particularly for those of you that aren't married, but you're in a relationship, you have a fear of commitment. That's actually something that we're going to talk about later on in the month. I'm going to do a live specifically on those of you that are commitment phobes, or that you're experiencing commitment phobia. Maybe you have differing values or beliefs and you haven't been able to muster up the strength or the courage, or perhaps you don't know how to have conversations that address the fact that you not only have differing values and beliefs, but maybe you don't realize until just now that I'm getting ready to tell you that some of the values that you have come into the relationship with, some of the belief systems that you have come into the relationship with have shifted, and now you're experiencing this rift because you've grown, you've evolved. You're not the same person that you were last year. You're not the same person that you were 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years ago. So many things have changed in your life that have impacted what you value and how you demonstrate the value for that, and what you believe and how you demonstrate your belief for that you don't even realize that it's creating a disconnect in your relationship. Hey, Carlisa, that you're creating a disconnect in your relationship. Another big one for folks, and I hear this quite a bit actually for a variety of reasons with my clients, is long distance relationships. Long distance relationships are challenging. Relationships in and of themselves are challenging for a variety of reasons, but when you factor in the impact that distance can have on the relationship, because you don't see each other often, or the majority of your communication is over the telephone or via email, and you're not touching and feeling and being able to have that human connection of warmth. And I'm not even talking about from a sexual perspective, I'm talking about just human connection, period. And so the distance takes a tremendous toll on the relationship that's causing a disconnect, because particularly when the distance is impacting you because you're in different time zones, that can have a huge impact and take a very negative toll on your relationships. What about those of you that are going through personal changes or issues in and of yourself that actually don't necessarily have anything to do directly with your partner, but because you're not fully able or equipped to handle the personal changes or issues that you're going through, or you don't know how to articulate what you're thinking and feeling about whatever it is that's going on with you, it's taking a toll on your relationship because your partner feels distant. Your partner feels like you're talking to everybody but them. Your partner feels like you're just sort of going on business as usual, and they are getting the sense that you're hurting or something is upsetting you or bothering you in some way, shape, form, or fashion. But because you're internalizing everything, it's having an adverse impact on your relationship, and it's causing a disconnect. It's causing you that you don't want to be touched, you don't want to be talked to, you don't feel desirable, you don't feel like you have a safe place and space to be able to share openly and honestly what you're really thinking and feeling. Or maybe you're having some disagreements over routine things around the house. Who does what household responsibilities, or if you have children, who's responsible for taking the kids to practice or picking them up, or if you're taking care of an ailing loved one, or if you have a parent or siblings or family members or friends residing with you, and there's all of this discord around what the daily routines are, and you can't seem to get aligned, and it's causing rifts in your relationship and putting a strain. So the way that you once expressed love and all of that, and the touchy feelies and that connection. Or maybe, truth be told, you're just not a touchy feely person, and you've heard me talk about it before on a live. Oftentimes people make the mistake, it is a huge misconception that we see in relationships. People make the mistake of thinking that the negative things, the things that bothered them, the things that they excused or made excuses regarding when you were dating or when you first started living together, somehow you miraculously think that those things are just going to disappear, and they don't. They oftentimes become more problematic throughout the relationship because they're not being addressed, and they're tearing at the moral fiber and the sustainability of the relationship because they should have been addressed 5 years ago, and those things are still happening, except they're happening more frequently now, and they're happening on a much more intense level now. And it's like, oh crap, so now all of this anger and this hostility and this bitterness has built up, and you don't know what to do with it. And as a result, it's putting a wear and tear on how you give and receive love, and on the degree of affection that you show in the relationship. It could be that you're outgrowing each other. One of you is outgrowing the other, and therefore you're losing interest because the things that you used to ha 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 and kiki about, the things that used to put a smile on your face, the things that used to make you feel fulfilled, you've outgrown those things and you've grown, but your partner hasn't. Growing apart and losing interest can take a toll on how love is given and received and how inclined we are to show affection or to be receiving of affection. Another huge one, huge, is sexual incompatibility. You know, we grow, we evolve. What worked for you in the beginning of the relationship might seem boring and mundane and same old crackers, right? You've evolved in your ability to sexually express yourself. You have matured in your ability to be comfortable in your own skin where your sexuality is concerned, but perhaps your partner is not as self-aware, or your partner is not as adventurous as you are, or there's a difference in libido for a variety of reasons. It could be health, it could be emotions, it could be stress. There's a number of different reasons that come into play when we're talking about libido, and that difference in libido can cause sexual incompatibility. There can be issues around whether or not you let yourself go. You know, people have often said what you do to get them is what you should do to keep them, but oftentimes people get so caught up in the routine, the mundane, the same old crackers of the relationship that they cease to take proper care of themselves and do what needs to be done to keep the interest, to keep the appeal, to keep the attraction, to keep the fire burning in your relationship. And as a result, the sexual compatibility sort of falls by the wayside. The number one reason in this country that couples break up or divorce if they're married is money. People think that it's infidelity. It's not. It's money. And having different approaches to money can cause major rifts in the relationship, in how love is given and received, in how affection is expressed, rejected, received. And there's other reasons such as lack of intimacy, fear of rejection, lack of effort, no trust, poor communication. All of these things can have a tremendous impact on how love is given and received and how we give and receive affection. So based upon everything that I said, I want to say this to you. It is absolutely, positively normal for you to experience the ebb and flow, the peaks and valleys in the feelings that you have for your partner within the relationship. When you think about love and affection, you can't entertain the changes that they go through without also taking into consideration that we all are or should be constantly growing and evolving in our relationships. First and foremost, in our relationship with ourselves. If you're the exact same person that you were 10, 15, 20 years ago, with all due respect, that's a problem. And what's happening is not only is life passing you by, but your relationship is passing you by, particularly if your partner is continuing to grow and to evolve and you are not. So you have to take into consideration that how you showed and received love and expressed affection at 15 is going to look different, or should look different at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50. So what I'm saying to you is you don't necessarily have to be alarmed if you no longer have the same romantic feelings for your partner that you did in the beginning of your relationship. It is more than likely because there have been a number of changes that have transpired in the relationship, and the love and the affection got lost in the metamorphosis of the evolution of the relationship. So if you're questioning whether or not you should continue in the relationship, it is absolutely critically important that you remember that all relationships, you don't have to believe me, take a survey. Survey all of the people that you know that are in relationships and ask them what types of changes their relationship experienced over time and how they dealt with those changes. Your relationship is going to go through different phases and stages, just like your mind and your body do. It is a natural part of life's progression. And I think so oftentimes people lose sight of that. They have this fantasy perspective of what the relationship is going to look like over time. And people will often say to me, well, Dr. Pitts, I'm doing what I always did. That's the problem. That's the problem, because you aren't who you were. So you're misaligned in how you're navigating life and love and affection and your relationship. There has to be a willingness to grow. And if you don't grow, I guarantee you are going to see the impact of your stagnancy on the relationship. It's also important for you to know that just because you're feeling discombobulated or out of touch with your partner now doesn't mean that you can't get those feelings back. It doesn't mean that those feelings can't be restored and come back stronger and healthier and better than they've ever been. It doesn't mean that the love can't be restored. It doesn't mean that the affection can't be restored. But I strongly believe that one of the major issues that people run into in this country as it relates to their relationships is too oftentimes at the first sign of trouble, folk want to throw in the towel. They don't want to work through anything. They don't want to understand anything. And you've heard me say it 100 times, if not 500 times or 1,000 times. Each of us is the common denominator in our relationship. So you can leave, but you're taking you with you. And there's no perfect person and there's no perfect relationship, but there'll be an ideal person for you. And there can be a healthy relationship. But if you aren't healthy, the moment you enter a relationship with somebody who's healthy, the relationship is unhealthy. You have to be willing to own the unhealthy parts of yourself that need to be worked on so that your contribution to the relationship is healthy. So some of you might be in your head. Everybody wants to overthink stuff. Everybody wants to be all deep. And you might be questioning, or let me rephrase that. It's not so much that you're questioning. You have a distorted view of what's really going on in your relationship. So you're thinking all sorts of things that are wrong with your relationship, and you're falling victim to the smoke and the mirrors and the camouflage of the real reasons that are happening that are eroding the integrity, health, strength, and sustainability of your relationship. So I'm going to give you a couple of hints that are going to open your eyes to things that you need to be paying attention to Because again, remember the first thing that I said was you have all these unresolved conflicts, right? So if you're not paying attention to the warning signs that are screaming at you, hey, disaster alert, we're failing miserably here. These things are inevitably going to impact how you give and receive love and how you give and receive affection. You need to know what the warning signs are that are an indication that you're losing interest in your relationship. The first one is you stop having substantive conversations. And let me just say with the utmost respect, some of you never had substantive conversations. I mean, you don't be mad at me. You know I'm telling the truth. Some of you never had substantive conversations. You started out in the beginning of the relationship talking at each other. Nobody's listening to be understood. Nobody's listening to understand. Nobody's speaking to be understood. You're speaking to be heard and you're listening to respond. And that's been the story your entire relationship. And you wonder, what is that going to look like if you stop having conversations at all? It's going to look like how you give and receive love and how you give and receive affection being adversely impacted. Your whole attitude has changed. Your whole attitude has changed. I said to someone, if you get to a place and space in your relationship where your attitude is, I could take it or leave it, meaning the person or the relationship, red flag. All the red flags are waving, all the sirens are blaring, and the whistles are whistling. That is a key indication to you that you need to reevaluate where this relationship is, how it got there, where it's going. Do you see the value in it, or are you just going to throw in the towel and literally throw away the investment that you've put into this person and into the relationship? You have to look closely at what your attitude is regarding the relationship. Here's a huge one. My husband and I talk about this one all the time because we know so many people. With him being in the trucking industry, you know, even though he's not a therapist, he still sees a lot on the road and he hears a lot as he's making his travels around the country. And one of the things that people are running into as an issue is they're making themselves less available. They would rather be any place else but at home. He and I have had conversations that, you know, in the past, that was a key indication for him that it was time to exit stage left. When he got to a place in space that he would rather spend time with his coworkers or, you know, hanging out with the fellas, he knew that it was time for him to reevaluate the quality of the relationship that he was in. Let me just say, I say he breaks his neck to get home. So let me just say that. I just need to put that out there. And I say that in jest, but I'm dead serious. Like, I tell people all the time, we go through things all the time, but we have a healthy relationship. We go through things not because we're at each other's throats or anything like that, but because life happens to us and we don't profess to have all of the answers. But what we do have is a commitment to being healthy as individuals and to being instrumental in contributing to each other's growth and development. We've made a commitment to being an agent of healing for each other because we both went through stuff. We both have stuff that we're working through based upon our individual life's journey, and we've both done a tremendous amount of healing, but there are still some things that we each work on individually that if we don't properly address it, it could negatively impact the relationship. But for some of you, the way you deal with that is you make yourself less available to your partner. You would rather be any place else on planet Earth. For some of you, you'd rather be on fire or throw yourself off a bridge than you would be at home. when you get to the place and space that you can be honest with yourself and recognize that you are withdrawing from your partner and you're no longer physically responsive to them, and I'm not talking about from a sexual standpoint, I'm talking about period. You let the call go to voicemail. You were like, I'll call her back. I don't feel like dealing with him right now. That's a problem. You blatantly ignore your partner, whether you're talking to them face to face. I'm amazed. I really truly am. And I know this is not my clinical brain that's amazed, because my clinical brain understands it, but my Lauren brain is blown away every time I hear someone personally or professionally tell me that they have not spoken to their partner in days or weeks. Like, you literally live in the same house and you act like the other person is completely invisible. Make that make sense to me. In what world is that okay? Why are two supposedly mature, responsible adults okay living in the same home, or not, because you might not be living together if you're not married, and you don't speak to each other? You absolutely, positively ignore each other. Houston, what is wrong with that picture? And I don't mean that literally. There's somebody on Instagram, their handle is Houston. So it wasn't, I don't know you, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. And here's one. This one might shock you. If you get to the point, because it ties into what I said a few minutes ago, if you get to the point where y'all don't even argue anymore, that suggests that you're in that I can take it or leave it space. You have come to the place in the relationship where you don't even feel like it's worth the time or the energy to address the issues at hand, because you don't feel like there's going to be any resolve. So you have to look at what brought you as an individual. And here's the hard part, folks. You don't want to blame or scapegoat, because anytime you blame or scapegoat, anytime you relinquish your power regarding how you handle your emotional experiences over to your partner, you're no longer in control of you, they're in control of you. And the only person that any of us have control of is ourselves. So you have to take ownership of whether or not you're relinquishing your emotional experiences over to your partner. Are you allowing the fact that the communication is poor to inform and influence how you show up? In other words, are you allowing the fact that your partner is a poor communicator to rob you of your authentic self? Because for many of you, who you are authentically is an excellent communicator. So why would you allow your partner to rob you of the ability to communicate effectively? Are you actually utilizing the excellent communication skills that you have to address your partner in a way where you're speaking so they want to listen, and you're listening so that they want to speak? For some of you, it might be that you came into the relationship, it was all about the woo-woo-woo, and now the woo-woo-woo has faded, the dirt has settled, the smoke has cleared, and now you don't have that intensity that you had at the beginning of the relationship. So your brain tells you to tell your heart that you don't love them anymore. Your brain tells you to tell your heart, I don't need all that. I'm not a really touchy-feely person. How in tune are you with the changes that you've made over time. We want to always point the finger and say that you did this and you did that and you did the other. But how have you changed? How have you regressed? How have you evolved? How are you handling other areas of your life that may be informing and influencing how you're connecting with your partner? Where are you guys' priorities at? Have you lost sight of what your priorities are? Have you even attempted to clarify what your priorities are as you're both growing and evolving, or if one of you is growing and the other isn't? Have you communicated that, or have you just made it up in your mind that, well, it's common sense? I said to someone earlier today, common sense is not common knowledge, because what we have a tendency to do as human beings is we look at others through the lens by which we live our own lives. And because we do that, we impose expectations upon others based upon how we respond to expectations. Well, I would do that. Well, I would think that. Well, I would feel that. I would handle it this way, but they're not you. So just because you think that this thing is common sense doesn't mean that that's their interpretation of it. And you have to be willing to extend that grace. It's not all about you. The world is not full of Stepford wives. We are not clones of each other. We are very unique individuals with very unique learning and lived experiences that inform and influence how we think and feel and function and navigate life. So just because it would make you mad doesn't mean it should make somebody else mad. Just because it makes sense to you doesn't mean it makes sense to them. But what we do is, because we navigate life through the lens by which we've lived our own lives, we become very judgmental and we become very critical of other people because they don't think the way we do, because we don't function the way we do. And that can be problematic. So what do? How do you get a handle on this? How do you fix it? How do you deal with you? How do you address the role that you play? I mean, really look in the mirror, folks. The tendency is to point the finger. The tendency, our human nature, is to externalize. It's like we judge and criticize our partners like we're passing gas. And I'm not saying that to be crass or crude, like I mean it. It's like externalize, 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 externalize. But where's the accountability? Where is the conversation, the come to Jesus conversation with the reflection in the mirror? When do you get honest and real with you about what has changed? Not first and foremost in the relationship, but what has changed within you. Somebody on Instagram said self-reflection is no easy task. No, it's not easy at all. It requires an exorbitant amount of humility. It requires an exorbitant amount of maturity. It requires courage. Self-reflection requires courage, because looking in the mirror and saying, ugh, is hard. You know why? Because it'll either require you to change or be unwilling to change. And then you have to justify why you acknowledge, you know what, it's my junk. I'm the problem. But F you, I'm not willing to change. Where do they do that at? Basically what that's saying is, I'm more worried about being dysfunctional than I am about nurturing the love and the affection and the sustainability in this relationship. That's the pride. But pride comes before a fall. At least that's what I read. Feel free to disagree. I mean, I'm just saying that's what I read. Y'all may have read something different. Part of the reason why I embrace being a solution-focused therapist, a solution-focused human being, is because I know the pain associated with being problem-focused. I know the pain associated with allowing my energy to be consumed with all things negative. It leads to toxicity. It leads to physical ailments. It leads to one fractured relationship after the other, after the other, after the other. And what I've learned is to look for the seed of equivalent benefit. What do I mean by that? Remind yourself about your partner's good qualities. You didn't, unless you're the epitome of dysfunctional, and I'm not saying that to be disrespectful, it's a fact. Unless you are the epitome of dysfunction, there were positive things about the person that attracted you to them in the first place. So if that's the case, why are you allowing yourself to lose sight of all of the good that this person is bringing to the table? One of the things that I frequently say, and my husband and I have very, very, very vulnerable and transparent conversations almost on a daily basis. And as we're talking about work-ons, as we're talking about opportunities for growth, one of the things that I constantly remind him of, and anyone else that ever, ask me about something, people that are intimately connected to us that may ask me about something, I constantly affirm my husband is an amazing human being. He by far is one of the nicest and most loving, kind, gentle people that I know. He has work-ons. So as we're navigating his work-ons and as we're navigating my work-ons, one of the things that we remain committed to doing is affirming the good that we see in each other. And we do it all the time. Why? Because what you feed grows. And if all you focus on is everything that's wrong with your partner and everything that's wrong with the relationship, then you're reinforcing the very things that are compromising your ability to give and receive love and affection in healthy, positive, and productive ways. You have to take interest in each other. You have to. My husband is not interested in everything that I'm interested in, but I can talk to him about it, and he's not rolling his eyes and falling asleep and sighing and huffing and puffing, and I don't do that either. One of the things that, because he says, he just told me this morning, he was like, you're always going, you're going. So one of the things that I committed to doing that helps me to make sure that my emotional intelligence stays on high and affords me greater ability to be fully present for him when he's sharing something with me that might not technically be of interest to me. But here's the thing, folks. It's not always about you. It's not always about me. It's about embracing what your partner finds of interest because it's interesting to them. It's the unselfish part of the relationship. No, I'm not interested in A, B, or C. My husband will tell anybody on planet Earth he is not a true football fan compared to me. I will talk a hole in his head about football. And he loves his Philadelphia Eagles. And he knows I love my Dallas Cowboys. But I am definitely a significantly more passionate fan and football enthusiast and sports enthusiast than he is. But he can listen to me go on and on and on and on and on. And I can listen to him talk about trucks and loads and canceled assignments and traffic and all of these things. Why? Because it's something that he's passionate about. And I'm passionate about him. So what's of interest to him, by default, is a degree of interest to me. We have to be willing to increase the amount of appreciation and respect that we have for one another. How can you openly show love and affection for somebody that you don't appreciate or respect? He says to me, he literally just said this to me earlier today, that he appreciates that even with my work schedule, I'm constantly doing things to add value to him and to add value to us and to add value to our home. And he knows that my time is crazy, but I will make it happen. Why? Because I want, I need, I desire for my marriage to be healthy. And here's the head trip. I want to add value to him, and he wants to add value to me. And that's what I'm saying to each of you. In order to do that effectively, you have to humble yourself and show appreciation and respect for one another. You have to show empathy. There but the grace of God go I. Folk are so self-centered and so self-absorbed. It's all about me, all about me, all about me, that you don't even consider what it's like to be your partner. I said to somebody earlier today, we had an aha moment because we realized that my client realized that they were imposing expectations upon their spouse that they themselves weren't even honoring. And I said, how can you do that? How can you, in good consciousness, ask something of your spouse that you yourself aren't even doing or seemingly willing to do? You have to give yourself permission to humble yourself and to show empathy and to deliberately and intentionally put yourself in your spouse's shoes. And oh darn, now you know what it's like to be in a relationship with you. How about that? How about that? I'm amazed at how frequently I hear couples talk about the tit for tat and the petty childishness that goes on in what's supposed to be adult relationships. How can you have healthy, open lines of communication if you're constantly one-upping each other? And you're constantly one-upping each other and you think that that's not going to have a negative effect on how you give and receive love and give and receive affection? Like, do you really want somebody touching you to just slice you and dice you with their mouth? Somebody said to me earlier in the week that they wouldn't strike their partner. They wouldn't hit their partner. And I was saying earlier too that I've had a few situations this week where domestic violence has come into play. And I said, you know, that's obvious, right? We know that the laying on of hands or using weapons or what have you is a problem. But a lot of you don't realize that your weapon is your mouth. Your weapon, you are literally slicing and dicing and destroying your partner and your relationship with your mouth because you've made a conscious decision to engage in what anybody can see and hear is unhealthy forms of communication. Why did you stop dating each other? Why? You don't have to have money to go on a date. There's plenty of things that can be done for free. It doesn't cost money to go walk in the park. It doesn't cost money to go for a drive. I mean, you put gas in your car, but I'm not saying, drive 500 miles away and burn all your gas up. It doesn't cost money to go to certain museums. It doesn't cost money per se to sit outside in the backyard and just talk. Part of the reason why you've lost the love and affection is because you don't know each other anymore. You stopped dating. You stopped getting to know each other as you continue to evolve and change. So part of what's going to be instrumental in helping you to address this is you have to be willing to take a step back to go forward. Or what I tell my clients is I take them from what I call the dance floor of life up to the balcony of life, because it's at that elevated perspective that they're able to see themselves much more clearly. And because you can see yourself more clearly, you can now see your partner and everything else that is going on in your life from a much clearer perspective. You have to remember the things that you love about each other. You didn't fall for somebody who, was all of these horrible things. There was a point in time when there were things that you really liked or things that you really loved about them. Reflect upon that. You have to. You have to be willing to do the self-work, because the self-work is going to be a key ingredient in restoring the love and the affection based on the season of your life that you're in and who you are now. You have to. You have to remember that, and I talked about this in a previous live, when it comes to passion, intimacy, and commitment, they're going to be ever changing. They're going to be moving. They're going to be rotating on you, and they're going to be different sizes and different levels of intensity as your relationship grows and evolves. And maintaining the passion, the intimacy, and the level of healthy commitment in your relationship is going to require you to be intentional. I am challenging you. I'm challenging you to look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and take self-inventory of what your contribution is to the love and the affection dwindling in your relationship. Don't worry about what your partner is or is not doing. Stay true to you. What is the healthiest, best part of you at your core capable of when it comes to adding value and sustainability in this relationship? And do that consistently. Stay true to you. Don't surrender your power to your partner just because they're not on point. You be the change that you wish to see in your relationship. And love and affection can be restored more healthy and whole than it's ever been. And if you feel like this is not something that you can do on your own, I want to encourage you to come to our couples virtual boot camp. It's being held Monday, September 23rd and Tuesday, September 24th. It's a Monday and Tuesday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. You can register at drpittsrelationshipfix.com. You can Google Dr. Pitts Couples Virtual Boot Camp and all of the information will come up. It's all over social media. I'm going to be running ads literally up until the day before the boot camps. Tell people that you know that are having problems in their relationship, I'm coming guns blazing. I'm going to give you some blood, guts, and gore of how to get out of your own way and have a healthier relationship than you've ever had in your life. We're going to be talking about the ingredients of healthy and sustainable relationships and conflict resolution and problem solving, improved communication, tips to manage anger, anxiety, and jealousy. We're going to address bitterness and unforgiveness and all of those things, but I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm laying on of clinical hands to help you all to have stronger, healthier relationships. As always, I got to run because I don't have a session tonight, but I do have a consultation that I need to do. I'm going to fix something to eat and watch some Olympics. But here's what I'm saying, folks. The integrity, health, strength, and sustainability of your relationship is up to each of you individually. In order to have a healthy relationship, two people need to be healthy. Well, how do we get healthy? We have to do the self-work. We have to acknowledge, confront, and conquer our own junk so that we can be the healthiest versions of ourselves that we can be. And then and only then will we see the love, the affection, and the overall integrity, health, strength, and sustainability of our relationships improve. I'll see you all next week. Have a great weekend, a great beginning of your week. It's up to you. Good night.